Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's jump right in, because today we've got a truly captivating premise to explore. We usually expect profound, life-altering truths to be handed to us on a silver platter, right? Spoken by some wise sage on a mountaintop or written in ancient texts. But what if that isn't always the case? What if the universe actually has a sense of humor? Today we're looking at how life's deepest realizations, stuff about infinite love and our own inner power, can show up disguised in the most unexpected and honestly sometimes absurd ways imaginable.
Just think about that for a second. What if your most profound teacher was disguised as a cartoon villain? Not a revered guru, not a sacred text, but a ridiculous pop culture character, and to make it even weirder, a character you didn't even particularly like. Sounds totally crazy, right? But as we'll see in the source material today, our subconscious mind, or maybe the universe itself, just doesn't play by our normal rules of what's considered spiritual.
And that brings us to the core thesis we're unpacking today. Sometimes, the biggest experiences arrive disguised as dreams. They show up as symbols or characters we'd literally never expect to carry any weight at all. But beneath those goofy disguises lies a super powerful, repeating truth: love is infinite. Love is power, and love is the very essence of who we are. These massive, life-altering truths frequently completely bypass our logical brains and reveal themselves through these highly unusual, super vivid nighttime visions.
All right, our first stop: disguised dreams and symbols, planting the seeds. Life just has this incredibly fascinating way of planting seeds way before we can even begin to comprehend what they're actually meant to grow into.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the sheer contrast. On one side, we've got the playful teacher, represented by the blue meanie. Yes, the cartoon villain from the Beatles' Yellow Submarine. On the flip side, we have the sacred teacher, represented by Sai Baba, a highly revered Indian saint. This intense dichotomy perfectly captures the two completely different doors we're walking through today. One is utterly absurd, the other is deeply profound. Yet, and I want you to really keep this in mind as we go, both of these totally mismatched symbols led to the exact same realization about the vastness of consciousness.
So let's look at this infinite blue meanie. This was a seed planted back in 1972. Our story starts at a massive birthday celebration where our subject, for completely unknown reasons, showed up dressed as a blue meanie. And remember, this was a character they didn't even like. It made zero sense at the time, but the seed was planted. Fast forward years later, and the harvest from that weird little seed arrived in a dream. The subject dreams they actually are the blue meanie, inside the yellow submarine. Suddenly, this incredible, overwhelming energy of warm love completely fills them. And then the multiplication kicks in. 1, then 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, zooming all the way to 512, 2014, exploding into absolute infinity in literally a fraction of a second. The pace of this dream was staggeringly fast. Their consciousness just ballooned into this infinite ocean of blue meanies, each one separate, but all fundamentally connected by one vast ocean of love.
Infinity. That is the breathtaking scale we're talking about here. In that tiny fraction of a second, the dreamer didn't just see a bunch of cartoon characters, they became the universe itself. They experienced this state of knowing literally everything on this planet and far beyond it. Total oneness with existence. And hey, this wasn't just some fleeting nighttime illusion that faded over breakfast. The source notes that the effects, that profound feeling of oneness, lingered for months. It served as this constant daily reminder of who we truly are right beneath the surface of our everyday human identity.
The sheer force of this experience is best summed up by this quote: "You felt a power more intense than a nuclear reactor, the power of love itself." Wow, that is staggering. The absolute force and lasting impact of this realization were triggered by a pop culture symbol the dreamer initially completely dismissed. It just goes to show you, life teaches in incredibly strange ways, taking the mundane or even the ridiculous and transforming it into a vessel for absolute universal power.
Moving on to the gift of healing, an initiation in Arizona. We're pivoting now from the totally absurd to the deeply sacred, where a vivid dream felt way more like a spiritual initiation than just a regular nighttime vision.
But before we get to the dream itself, just look at how meticulously life orchestrates these events. It's like a giant puzzle. Just like that blue meanie costume planted a seed back in 1972, well, 3 months prior to this Arizona dream, during a healing course, an instructor looked right at our subject and made a prophecy. They said, "You will receive a great gift from Sai Baba." The stage was completely, perfectly set.
Now, for those who might not know, Sai Baba was a highly revered Indian saint, famous for manifesting physical objects out of thin air, things like vibhuti, which is sacred ash, and even jewels. He is a figure of immense spiritual gravity. But in this vivid Arizona dream, the dreamer didn't see a powerful, untouchable saint. Actually, scratch that. It's more like they saw the exact opposite. Sai Baba appeared very sick, surrounded by these incredibly anxious crowds.
And out of that huge crowd, the saint walks directly up to the dreamer and speaks just 5 words. "Only you can heal me." Just imagine the weight of that request. The moment those words were spoken, a massive surge of tremendous energy flooded the dreamer's entire being. They raised their hands, sending healing energy directly into the saint's body. The saint's whole body shook, and moments later, he was completely healed. The love that flowed between them right then was an overwhelming wave of bliss that totally saturated the dreamer. This was the great gift that the instructor had promised 3 months earlier.
So, the shared human puzzle, synthesizing the lessons. How on earth do an infinite cartoon villain and a revered saint connect? Well, surprisingly, they teach the exact same ultimate lesson about our reality. And this brilliantly illustrates the core takeaways from the text. The dream taught that every single teacher has value, and every path carries wisdom. Every soul has something unique to offer, because, let's face it, absolutely no one has all the answers. We're meant to learn from each other. Ultimately, you learn to respect all teachers, not because they're flawless, perfect beings, but because every person, every symbol, and every experience carries a vital piece of this shared human puzzle. Humility, therefore, is the absolute foundation of all growth.
Which brings us to our final synthesis, the final spiritual ledger, reminders and awakenings.
If we step back and look at the grand scheme of these two very different experiences, we can really start to categorize exactly what the universe was trying to communicate. On the one side, we have the reminders, the playful symbols, the sacred figures, and the dreams themselves. These are basically the vehicles. Then on the other side, we have the awakenings, the actual truths being delivered. The playful symbols awaken us to the fact that love is infinite and consciousness is incredibly vast. The sacred figures awaken us to the reality that healing is real and humility is essential. None of this was random, guys. These weren't just weird dreams. They were deliberate signposts meant to literally shake the dreamer awake to their true nature.
And that leaves us with this undeniable truth. Dreams can be doorways. When our logical, waking mind finally gets quiet, the soul remembers its true nature. It remembers that we are so much more than we think we are, and it will use whatever symbols it needs to, whether that's a cartoon submarine or a revered saint, to remind us of that infinite source. I want to leave you with this beautiful, grounding quote from the text known as Zorn's Whisper. "Traveler, even the blue meanie carries the seed of infinity. Love multiplies, expands, and reveals the truth of who you are, and healing flows through you because you remember the source." As we wrap up this explainer today, I really want you to ask yourself, what disguised teachers might be in your life right now? What seemingly absurd or mundane symbols are you currently ignoring that might just carry your own seed of infinity? Keep your eyes open because the answers rarely come in the packaging we expect. Thanks so much for learning with me today.